Welcome to Demystifying the Metaphysical, here to help you find more compassion in your life. Before we find out what our lifeline tells us, if you haven't already, check out the video on the signs palm readers look for a general overview on what to look for when looking at the lines on the hands. You can find the video link on the top right or in the description below. Stay till the end to find out whether or not you have or will decide to write a new chapter in your life. The lifeline starts on the thumb side of the hand and typically sweeps down towards your wrist. This line tells us about our physical strength and the quality of our life. It does not predict how long we'll live. The timing on most palm lines are much more spaced out the first half of the line, and the gap between the ages start to get smaller in the latter half of the line. On this hand with a medium set thumb, the second joint of the thumb, where the dotted line is, lines up with the age 45. This is a rough guide, not an exact science. See the video What Your Fingers Say About You to learn how to find out how your thumb is set and whether it means you're guided by your heart or willpower. As we begin looking at the characteristics of the lifeline, keep in mind that if an indication is seen on both hands, it intensifies or confirms that the characteristic exists. If it's only on the non-dominant hand, perhaps the person has outgrown the characteristic or feels that way inside but doesn't show it to the world. If it's only on the dominant hand, then it's probably present in the character, but look for other signs to confirm. Please don't take one indicator as the absolute truth, and remember that lines on our hands can change. You decide your fate. Some of the characteristics the lifeline reveals is our state of health, our energy level, our enthusiasm for life, milestones and difficult times, and our reactions to the situation. The lifeline is one of the lines that is most responsive to changes in our attitude, behavior, and lifestyle. Before we start looking at what the starting and ending points of a lifeline tells us, for those that are not familiar, here are the official names of the fingers and mounts on the hand. The two areas we'll be looking at a lot in this video is the mount of Venus and the mount of Luna. The mount of Venus represents love, warmth, and enthusiasm, while the mount of Luna has a cooler feel to it. Luna also represents creativity, travel, and for some people, psychic abilities. As for the fingers, the index finger is called Jupiter, middle finger Saturn, ring finger Apollo, and little finger Mercury. If you'd like to learn more about the mounts on your palm, check out the video on the top right. The typical starting point of the lifeline is halfway between the base of the index finger and where the thumb connects to the palm, where the arrow is pointing. A person with a lifeline that starts at this halfway point has a balanced attitude between being ambitious and having the ability to relax. If the lifeline starts above this halfway point, the person has more drive. And if it starts below the halfway point, the person will take life as it comes. Where the lifeline ends could tell us if a person prefers to stay close to home, likes to travel, or will move far away from home. When the lifeline is tucked around the mount of Venus, shown by the orange line, without any extraneous branches, this person loves her home. It's a sacred refuge for them. If the person also has a branch to the mount of Luna, like the green line, then the person will equally enjoy traveling and returning home. To see which they prefer more, check out which branch is longer and deeper. If the person's lifeline doesn't wrap around Venus, but instead branches off and runs towards the mount of Luna, the person will likely be a world traveler. The further onto the mount of Luna the branch travels, the more likely this will be true. If traveling isn't their thing, the other two interpretations are that they might have come a long way from their circumstance at birth, or may have migrated or will move away from their place of birth. Here's an example of a hand with a very faint branch reaching for the mount of Luna, where the arrow is pointing. This usually means the person will think about traveling, but might not actually do it. Now let's take a look at how curved your lifeline is and what it means. A very deep semicircle curve, like the orange line, shows a person who is emotionally generous, enthusiastic, and extroverted, because the line gives most room to the Mount of Venus. The greater the curve, the more resilient the person will be against obstacles in life. When the lifeline is slightly curved, like the green line, the person is emotionally reserved or shy. It could take time to get to know the person or for them to warm up to people. When the lifeline is more straight or a narrow arc, like the purple line, the person is more private, introverted, and prefers to lead a quieter life. Sometimes they could be critical of others. The hand on the left is an example of a hand with a deeply curved lifeline, and the hand on the right has a straight lifeline. Notice how the hand on the left allows more room for the Mount of Venus, while there isn't much room for Venus to come through on the hand on the right. This limits the characteristics of Venus, love and passion. It's not to say that the person doesn't have these characteristics. It's more about how expressive they are about their feelings and whether or not they're loving and warm towards everyone they meet, or they're more selective with who they show their love to. Do you see thin lines rising off of your lifeline? Notice which finger or mount they're running towards. In the hand on the left, the branch is running towards the Mount of Mercury, or the little finger, which is a sign of potential business success, especially if it involves communication. The hand on the right has two lines rising towards the Mount of Jupiter, or the index finger. This is a sign of ambition, someone who is determined to improve their life circumstance. If you have a line running towards the Mount of Saturn, or your middle finger, this shows an increased sense of responsibility. And a line running towards Apollo, or the ring finger, shows potential success in a creative or artistic field. The further up the line reaches, the stronger the sign. For those who may not know, a quick recap of the three major lines and where they are. The heart line is the first horizontal line that runs across the palm. The head line is the second line, and the lifeline is the third line that sweeps around the base of the thumb. When the lifeline is the least prominent of the three major lines, like on this hand, the heart and the mind will keep wanting to push ahead, but the person might not have enough physical energy to do so. A person with this kind of lifeline should listen to what their body is telling them and pace themselves. When the opposite is true, where the lifeline is the most prominent of all three lines, and it's of good quality, which we'll learn how to assess later, this will be a huge benefit to the person, even if the heart and head line has defects or isn't very strong, as the person will have additional life force to keep them going. Keep in mind your hand type when trying to figure out which line is the strongest. If you have a water hand, it's likely all the lines on your hands will be very light and faint, so it might be harder to tell. Check out the video on the top right to learn more about what your hand shape says about you. Are you missing a lifeline? If so, you might be dreamy and might be easily influenced by others. In this hand, there isn't a fate line, but sometimes the fate line can take up double duty as both a life and fate line. A fate line can start and end anywhere and is typically along the path of the dotted line. If you see a short lifeline, this again is not a sign of a short life, but someone who should pay attention to their health. Perhaps eating better, exercising to build endurance, and making sure they get enough sleep. On this hand, there looks to be a very faint line developing to extend the lifeline. How similar or different are the lifelines on each hand? Our non-dominant hand shows us what we were born with, our original blueprint. And the dominant hand shows us our current thoughts and situation. Let's assume the person is right-handed, and therefore the right hand is the current state of mind. Notice how there's a break on the lifeline on the hand on the left, while the lifeline on the right hand is much more deep and clear. The improved lifeline shows the person made efforts to increase their health and stamina. The sister line plays two different roles. One is a repair sign when seen along a break on a major line. It helps to bring the energy back to the main line. The second place we see it is along the lifeline. It runs parallel to the lifeline and can be for any length. When present, it is a strengthening sign. It adds energy, endurance, and protects against illness. A person with a sister line will likely be into sports, not just watching, but also playing. It is rare to see a flawless lifeline, but this one comes pretty close, except for the beginning of the line where it is a bit feathered. Overall, this lifeline is of good quality. It is deep, clear, even in its depth and clarity, and of good color. Pink is the color we're looking for in the lines. If your skin tone is darker, pink will show up as a warm brown. When a person has a deep and clear lifeline, they have endurance. Not only can they resist disease, but they're also able to brush off worries that come their way. They're able to use challenges as a stepping stone to improve their lives. A person with a thin and clear lifeline has less endurance and could be sensitive. They could try pacing themselves to save energy. A chained line looks like a bunch of loops linked together. This is a tough line for energy to move through, as the loops force the current to have to go round and round. It is quite common for the beginning of the lifeline to be chained. A chained lifeline could mean a difficult period, a time of uncertainty, or a period to pay attention to your health. Upward splits off of the lifeline is a sign of enthusiasm and desire for achievement. This hand has upward splits all along the lifeline. This person wants to increase their status in the world. An overlapping break on the lifeline means the person made a conscious decision to make a major change in their life. In this hand, the new lifeline moves away from the thumb, making more space for the Mount of Venus, which means the new chapter in this person's life will be more lively and enthusiastic. If the new lifeline moves closer to the thumb, the person might want to retreat from the outside world. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.